Hey, welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by Tripper Gawan. He's the vice president of Solero.com and upcoming leadership author. So, Tripper, thanks for joining us today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Scott. I really appreciate you taking the time today to have this conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to talk about your operations expertise. I really get kind of nerdy about operations based stuff and how you're utilizing operational excellence in your activities and in your business and in your personal life, whatever. Really, I know you have the leadership book coming up. So I thought I'd give you an opportunity to tell us about the book that you have coming up. What inspired you to write that?
You know, the inspiration really came from just the ideas that are in my heart and in my mind and the way that I've impacted people along my leadership journey. There's been individuals that have expressed to me that I've been one of their favorite, if not their favorite manager, supervisor, VP, COO, whatever it is in the role that I inhabited. Even at Starbucks many, many moons ago as a shift supervisor, people love to work on my shift and they would request that so that they could work underneath my tutelage. So you find along these pathways that you develop these ways of engaging people that allow them to be themselves, but express themselves in an environment where they can be valuable to the group, the cohort group that you're working with to accomplish whatever the goals are that you have. Those tactics, I've been able to accomplish great things, not by myself, because I could have done nothing by myself. It takes teams all along the way. So if you can really help your teams recognize their strengths and leverage those strengths to reach your goals, that's for me, that's kind of where my I chop my leadership teeth for sure.
Why don't you describe the book for us?
So the book is entitled Slugbug, Guide to Leadership. And Slugbug is a game. I don't know if you're familiar with the game, are you?
I am. Like when you
You
see
are? Okay.
when you see
Perfect.
a Volkswagen Bug driving down the road. Yeah,
What do you do?
that was big when I think we're probably of similar age. That was bigger when we were growing up than when, like, my kids, for example. We did that a
Agreed.
little bit, but they weren't. That's I don't think that's being carried on beyond our generation.
No, I agree, and that's the thing is, there's my son is 22 years old, so he's of that generation that doesn't know what Slugbug is. They didn't go around punching each other. They were on computers and video games and screens a little bit more. Even though they did go outside, it was just a little bit of a different experience. Not as much thing to entertain you on a drive as we didn't have those things back then, as you know. So yes, to your point, you recognize a Volkswagen, you say Slugbug, and you punch the person in the arm. Well, that principle, that game, you recognize quickly that you don't pay attention. There are no slug bugs. You're not punching people. If you're not playing the game, you don't pay attention. You don't see Volkswagens. When you do play the game and your attention is to play the game, you will see Volkswagens everywhere. And so whether or not people of this day play that game, the description of the game is the principle in total of what kind of each chapter helps to articulate, which is the things that you focus on are the things that will come true because that's where you're putting your energy. There's lots of metaphors like the lion you feed, the where you put your focus, where your attentions go, that's what grows. Like there's all these different euphemisms for these types of ideas and principles. I break them out in the ways that they've impacted me, where I learn those lessons, how I learn those lessons, and then how I associate those lessons to how I lead people. And so the book, through the 18 chapters that are in there, helps either a seasoned leader, like someone that's been around for a long time, they maybe are a VP or a COO, take some metaphor principles to heart in a way that they might be able, or not might, that they will be able to get their team members to be more productive, be more valued, and not be the 80-20 rule that a lot of business people talk about, right? You have 80% of your staff doing 20% of your work and 20% of your staff doing 80% of your work. Those are not good values. You really have to make sure you are looking at your systems operations and how your team are working and looking at the efficiencies so that everybody's pulling their fair share as best as you can organize it. You don't want an assembly line process where somebody stands in there and they don't do anything when the materials are passing by. Their job is to do what? And so you can have these overinflated leadership structures where those leaders aren't engaged with the day-to-day operations, then that might not be the best structures. again, identifying the things that you need to look out for in your business. If efficiency is one of them, you're going to find opportunities to be efficient or find efficiencies. But if it's not one of them, guess what? You're not going to find areas for efficiency. So it really does come down to, again, the guidance principle is what you look for will be there. Kind of like Schrodinger's cat. You know,
Yeah.
it's alive and it's dead until you open the box. So in life,
Right.
you have to
Right.
open the box, you have to get involved, you have to get there to figure out what is living and what is dead and what needs to be revitalized. So that's the general principle.
Yeah, I love the idea, and it's so true. When you're playing the game, you're really focusing on looking for beauty.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a funny thing, you can't focus on every aspect of business, and people learn that when they're getting their MBAs, right? Like you focus on finance, you focus on supply chain, you focus on procurement, you focus on forecast management, you focus on data and analytics, you focus on human capital management. Oh, it gets exhausting. So you have to be pretty organized and scheduled in the way that you are focusing on those things and what's the most urgent and important thing at that time. For me, if I'm riding in a car with my uncle who was a Marine, he was 6'4", my attentiveness for the Slugbug was heightened because of the environment I was in. I don't want him to find it before I find it. And
Right.
so the game can shift or morph slightly. The business acumen, focus, and how you engage can morph slightly depending on the environment. So there's these little takeaways and little gems that are sprinkled throughout the book that help people articulate or identify these areas so they can articulate it in those metaphors in their heart, but also to their teams. Because that's the thing. You might be a leader that is not on your journey season. You might be a leader that's, brand new into this and you don't know what to focus on, how to lead, how to do these things. And you need a guide that's simple to understand. Slugbug's one of the easiest principles to understand because see the bug or I'm going to punch you. Like that's as basic as you can get.
Yeah, very cool. I like the
Yeah.
idea. I like the concept. It sounds
Thank
really
you. Appreciate
interesting.
it.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading a copy.
I will give you a copy. Scott, I promise you that when those books are printed, you will get a copy, sir.
That'll be awesome. Thank you very much. So let's shift to operations in general, if you don't mind. So tell me about how your operations background shaped like your leadership philosophy. You talked about like all the way back to your time at Starbucks. You've had a philosophy. How has that influenced, or how has your operations influenced your leadership, or vice versa?
It's funny. My operations really began, and in the book I do articulate it as well. Back when I worked as a lifeguard when I was 15, that was I had jobs even going back as far as when I was 12 years old. We're from a different breed. I'm 47 years old. I'll be 48 coming up here in March. I sold candy door to door and did newspaper subscription and got in a strange van with a strange guy named Frank that my parents never met to go out in a neighborhood with a bunch of other kids and knock doors in neighborhoods we didn't know where we were at. So yeah, we grew up in a different time, but
Yeah, for sure.
digressing not too far, really lifeguarding is where I started to learn what leadership means. And when you're in an environment where the greatest risk is really a child drowning or injuring themselves seriously, thankfully no one ever drowned on my shift, but I had kids fall off the high dive. The high dive's 3 meters or 3 meters in feet. For Americans is a little over 9 feet. Falling 9 feet as a child is not something you should be doing. It's not healthy for you. So, I learned quickly that there's things and schedule management within that ecosystem that required my attentiveness and started to really develop my leadership styles based on checklists that I started to create to ensure safety was paramount to everything. And so that ultimately has helped style and shape a lot of my leadership philosophies. I hope I'm not too far off track of what your question intention
No, no,
is.
you're right on track.
Okay. So, and I've held various roles through my leadership career, like you noted at Starbucks. The funny thing about that is I wasn't even going to work at Starbucks. I was happy. I was a manager of a pool. I was going to ASU to get my education degree. I had full-time gigs. I was busy. I went with a friend to one of those job fairs, and I was walking by this lady that was standing there at Starbucks, and she's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Amazing. How are you?" She's like, "Is that your answer for everybody?" And I'm like, "Pretty much, yeah. I'm a very optimistic person, so that's kind of my general response." And she's like, "Well, did you ever consider for working for Starbucks?" And I never had considered it before. I'd only ever had one cup of coffee, and I was like 22 years old. And so I explained that to her, and we both laughed. And she's like, "Well, what do you do?" And I explained I'm a manager, and I was actually an EMT as well at the time while I was going to school. So I used to work in back office urgent cares and things like that again. tied to this urgency of the operations I learned were built around life-saving requirements and stuff. So it's a little different than coming up in plumbing where, a toilet overflows is maybe the worst case scenario. So a little bit of a different operational mindset is developed because of coming from a medical or lifeguarding background. So that's where my specificity has come through in the rest of my operational leadership development. But back to the Starbucks thing, it was funny. She was like, well, we have a management program. We'd love to hire you right into management. And that was my first realization that was like, oh, all these skills that I've been learning. And I had been a manager for Parks and Recs in Mesa for about 5 years at the time, which was seasonal, but still I was responsible for, 30 employees and multitudes of schedules for doing lessons and having competitive teams and doing events at the pool, dive-in movies, regular lifeguarding hours, and having to manage all these things at a young age, plus keeping out for people's general well-being, the training of the lifeguards, making sure that they were capable and followed up on their training daily, weekly, so that they were healthy, physically fit, and able to do these things, all built into that. So when I was having this engagement with this gal, she was a little blown away by my age and my experience, and offered me the opportunity to come in as a manager. So I came into Starbucks as manager role and learned how to, on their Lawnmower Zocco machine, how to make a coffee. And I became a black apron coffee master,
Nice.
tasted all the coffee and pairings. So I really got delved into the world of coffee and really started to understand how the influence of the bagging affects the customer base, and how the packaging affects how the employee uses it or doesn't use it correctly. And all these things started to bake in how I manage people as well. And I got a lot of that from my Starbucks experience. So
Yeah, that's
again,
cool.
I'm trying not to go off too much here. Let me
No, I'm
digress.
I'm I'm impressed by like you're coming up through the Starbucks realm and stuff before that too. In my at school we had some case studies on Starbucks operational excellence and
Yeah.
how they would literally shave seconds off of each order and each
Yes.
person in the drive-through, each person in line, and shave
Yeah.
seconds, and overall that those seconds per customer turns into minutes per hour, turns into hours per day.
Game changing.
It's really cool to see how efficiency can really, really improve the bottom line when you look at it.
Yeah.
If you can serve 20% more customers because you created more efficient processes, then you're going to be more successful. Bottom line, you have more sales, more stores, more bottom line.
Yeah. Learning COGS at Starbucks was that big lesson in unit cost measurement and human capital measurement against COGS, and how you're looking at that operational efficiency. Where I watched Starbucks go from doing a drive-through to building a smaller version of Starbucks at the drive-through counter itself, like making it so that the person didn't even have to leave the area to get standard drinks ready and out the door, instead of waiting on the cafe person to do so. And so to that point, yeah, the efficiency optimization kicked off there, where when I got into construction trades management, it was so standard for me to kind of look at these things. I got into solar after doing a bunch of other things, but really my where I've cut my real business acumen is through the development the last 13 years in the solar market space, and coming in as a boots on the ground employee and becoming an operations manager in solar market space within 10 months was proof in pudding that my managerial acumen and ability to pick up systems and process and improve and enhance them is what made a name for myself when I first started working at Vivint Solar. And that kicked off to an opportunity to take over their full stack of the safety program, the quality assurance program, the training program. I was senior manager of all three of those for a multi-billion-dollar company. And, when we're talking about doing 100 installs in one day, which we did, that is not a small feat. 100 residential installs in a single day, and at our peak, and then taking all of those systems and processes, but having to dial them in, because the impact of one bolt across 500 installs in 1 week is the same thing you're talking about operational efficiency at the drive-through of Starbucks, except for now it's this one bolt for these employees. And the example there is we had racking that for the solar panels that had different sockets for different units and pieces on the system, which was insane because you had to keep track of a 5/16, a half inch, a 1/4 socket. And so people learned, and through our experience of working with companies like Pegasus, one of my favorite racking companies ever, they came out with the single half-inch socket setup. So everything is this. And so bringing my solar experience or my managerial and checkboxing experience into the solar market space is what has kicked everything off for me since then. And I've now been successfully managing it, managing in this world for more than a decade.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, let's talk about like operations in training or operations in sales. So, how does operations really influence those sub departments within an organization?
Understood. I would articulate the very first thing that needs to happen is that people need to understand the product. If your sales reps, if your operations team members don't understand the product, they won't understand anything. Oftentimes, LMS systems are really guided around how to click a button, how to drag a thing, how to do a that, how to check an SOP, how to reference a document. When I was hired at Starbucks, I got a management 3-ring binder that was this thick. And like I had to go through hours and hours and hours of training. I don't remember shit, pardon the French, from any of that took place. The second they got me on the floor in front of the materials to understand how all the stuff worked is when I really started to learn. So I think the reliance of LMS systems as an ancillary support rather than a trigger support or a foundational support is one of those misconceptions. I think if I actually grab that word back and put it back into what we're talking about here, that is a successful way to onboard and manage your employees. No, 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 no. First, they have to understand more than that. They have to understand the mission, the core values, and what your company, again, the product that your company sells, and how each department is responsible for those aspects of that deliverable or making sure that product comes across the finish line. So I think by focusing on that area, you are going to maximize your opportunity to get a good product out there. And for the onboarding of your team to understand, okay, well, I know that this equipment has to do this stuff, or this widget has to be, this is our widget that we do now. And I understand all the departments that are responsible for stuff. Now the ecosystem, I can stumble through the ecosystem. I can stumble through the CRM. I can stumble through that stuff and ask questions on the how to if I know the why, which the why, like a lot of leadership books will tie back. The why matters, the why, the why for yourself, but the why for the business. Why do we do this? And asking that question is one of the primary ways for you to revitalize the engagement, which is where you really want to start with the onboarding of your team member, is get them creatively asking questions why about your product and your processes, so that as they come in, the fresh eyes aren't just getting the indoctrination and drinking the Kool-Aid that's been represented, but they're coming in with fresh eyes in a way that they might be able to blow your operational thing off the deck. And you can reference, Elon Musk has a video where a guy that was interviewing him, and they were talking about the different boosters and the stages and how he had done different things with how they manage the cooling systems of those booster phases. And he's like, well, what do you do with that piece down there? He goes, oh, it's this whole other thing. And the guy was like, well, why don't you just do the same thing there? And wouldn't it be more efficient? And like on a live interview, and Musk was like, shit, yeah. And totally redid everything that he was doing based on that conversation.
Yeah, was that a one with Tim Dodd?
Yes.
I actually
Yes.
saw that interview. Yeah, I remember the moment where he thought, and he goes, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We're going to change that."
Exactly. And so that's the point, is like your environment of bringing people into your ecosystem. The misconception is that they need to come in and they need to digest everything in the same way that all the employees currently are digesting it. Now, you might be a surgical brain surgeon room OR that has everything so dialed in that the only thing you might be able to suggest is, walking backwards through the door so that you use your butt instead of your elbows to open the door. Like maybe that's the only thing that you can find in all of their stuff. Depending on how you onboard your people and how you allow them to be a part of the process and understand the product, you won't get even that nuance back in a surgical room if you don't allow people to contribute. And so I think that comes from the culture that you create when you are onboarding people.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Let's talk about the solar industry for a little bit. What kind of challenges do you think solar companies face in how they're managing operations, in their operational process?
That's a much easier question than where I thought you were going, is what the solar industry faces. We've just faced a litany of solar coaster, we call it, because
Yeah.
the solar world has changed and continues to change. Literally, it feels like every 3 to 6 months. Tying it down to an operational functionality, the really main thing, and I talk about this with a lot of different leaders and a lot of different groups, because I've had the opportunity to meet with literally hundreds of installers and contractors nationwide through the networks and ecosystems that I've worked for and inhabit currently, just through working with NYSERDA, working with SIA, working with HeatSpring through their safety course development, working with the large platforms I've been privileged enough to work for. So I've had a lot of opportunity to meet with these groups and help determine what those problems are. The first one is, again, roles and responsibilities. A lot of times when you ask people, hey, so where's your roles and responsibilities list? Like, who's responsible for what? They kind of don't know what you're talking. Oh, well, Jim does the electric. Okay, well, what does that mean that Jim does the electric? Like, do you just trust that he does everything right? Well, yeah, I do. Okay, well, then how do you verify that Jim is doing everything right? Oh, well, so you start to ask these questions and open up. And the real truth of it is that people have an understanding of their product, but not their process. And they think that they're managing people. And that's the fallacy in any world, solar or otherwise. This fallacy is that you manage people. You shouldn't be managing people if your processes are developed correctly. You manage the process. And if the people aren't following the process, then either the platform that they use to engage it is wrong, you didn't train them correctly, or they don't know the why, or they don't know the product, or they don't know the process correctly to do so. So it's your fault as a leader. Usually it's your fault anyway as a leader. But it really comes down to that. And so I'm a I'm a firm advocate of making sure the roles and responsibilities are clearly articulated and that those roles and responsibilities line up directly with how a project transitions from bucket to bucket or phase to phase. So at Starbucks, this guy takes the name at the register. That person doesn't go get the coffee unless it's the coffee right behind them. That's the process. If it's the coffee behind you, you get it. If it's not, you take the name, you slap it on the cup, you might pump the syrups, and then you hand it over and you forget about it. You don't follow up on those people because their process should start where your process ends. And so as a company, if you're not going back to verify that, where your process is, who's the roles and responsibility, that's where you have to start the development from the revitalization of your business.
Right.
So in solar, that's operationally, you have to identify that first, but it's the same in any industry.
So let's talk about process a little bit. So what is like in your day-to-day role at Solero, how are you helping solar companies streamline their processes?
So Solero, thankfully, we ourselves were and have been a solar EPC, which is a equipment procurement company where we basically did the sale from the very beginning. We get all the equipment, we do design and engineering, we dispatch people to go do the site survey. We do all the processes literally from the very first sold all the way to system activation when the customer gets to turn it on and realize the energy getting produced from the solar system on their roof. So we've done that. We've realized that there's a few good areas where we're experts. We don't want to be a solar installer contractor in every single country or every single state. That's not our business model that works best for us. We're really good at marketing, we're really good at sales, and we're really good at supporting solar operations and making sure that people have the right knowledge and tools to execute operationally. In that, Solero has another arm of its business that's called Jules. It's a solar CRM software. So through my decade of experience, I've helped take all of my solar experience and every dream world thing that I'd like to have in an ecosystem to manage a project. And solar projects are as complex, if not more complex, than a lot of the construction management projects that you would have out there, because you could have a ground mount that requires land surveys, that requires verification of soil science, for maybe there's an estuary or something crazy. Like there's all kinds of things tied to it. It goes on a roof. You have building and structural. It's electrically involved. So the scope and scale that solar can have is so big. So the processes there comes back to like, do you have a system that allows you to seamlessly and easily operate and manage your projects? You can use Google, and then you can use a company like a group like Company Cam or Site Capture. That's an asset management tool that your team can use to upload photographs and connect to your system. Then you can integrate a finance system, and you can integrate all these things on it. And by the time you've integrated what you need for your business, you're paying $20,000 a month. It's really convoluted. You have an IT department now, and everything gets really complicated. We've simplified that and made it so like literally you can manage with one project manager, 300 projects a month, work with your own installers doing it in your state or multiple states. The visibility opportunity for everybody to see what's going on is very kind of Uber Eats centric, where you can log into the app and see what's going on with your project, all the way to tracking when a scheduled booked appointment is. And the technician logs into the app, it tracks where they're at real time, so the customer can see that, the schedule that they booked is an actual schedule that's going to happen. So I've everything that I've learned in the decade of solar and the 30 years of project management and people management and process management, and built a system that, I mean, you can run with a skeleton crew now. Like it's
Yeah,
like
very
the
cool.
difference between going from a nuclear submarine back when they used to have those giant sailboats. Like the staff that you need is drastically reduced through the technology.
Yeah.
That's the primary way we're able to help people be more efficient today.
Yeah, very cool. So I imagine your CRM has ways of measuring the operational efficiency. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the coolest, and I could nerd out about this for another 6 hours, so you better be careful as to so, the main things that come down with projects, the first thing I will say is communication. And so we've built internal system that allows you the opportunity to pair and sync up your G Suite or whatever communications platform you use. Some people use Microsoft, some people use text on their phone, some people use Slack. That's an integrated thing you can do. A lot of companies use that. So our technology will integrate with any of those things, allow you to even just use the app, which is iOS, Android based, and you can at any time communicate on the project based on your role and based on your accessibility. So customers can ask questions about certain things of certain phases that they have visibility in, like you would with Uber Eats. Hey, I see your, like, if they're waiting for the food at the restaurant, they're not going to ask you a question about delivery time because you see that they're still waiting for the food. So the app has the ability to show people, the sales rep, the customer, other people that work on those projects at different phases, what's going on with that project so that they don't have to engage you to get a follow up, which distraction kills efficiency more than anything in the world. If I'm writing a story about fish tanks and you come to me and start talking to me about nuclear fission, my brain is going to break on fish tanks because of the complexity of what you're trying to talk to me about is too much. I won't be able to focus on those two things. So when I'm in the throes of project management and you errant me on another project with another thing, that literally you could get if you knew how to look at the system. And a lot of systems aren't intuitive that way, like an Uber Eats, where you just look at they're just waiting for the food. So our systems built this communication opportunity where you can communicate and at tag and manage, and it syncs with all those things. But the systems app also shows you based on your role what you should be allowed to see and gives you those updates so that you don't have to engage the team and distract them from their operational efficiency. So that's like paramount to the success. Everything else that we built in there, we've got employee tracking, like I said, for your field technicians. We're synced up with Google Suite in a way that if that's most people use that for their primary email management because you can get terabytes of data storage for everything
Yeah,
else you're doing
for
for
pennies.
basic
Yeah, it's amazing.
technical net. So we're not going to compete with that on that side of the system, but we do sync with your calendar. So your employees now, you can go in and have them manage their calendar and their availability and sync that up with our system so that when you go to book appointments within the CRM, it's using your employee's calendar. And so you marry that to their role. So the foreman has a calendar and he's responsible for the installs. Your site survey has a calendar, he's responsible for that. But let's say you want to open up opportunity for your site surveyor to do service, to do inspections, do other things that support, deliver materials, whatever. You can break their schedule out in a way that they can be optimized within the system and full visibility across the platform. So everybody at any time can log in and, Uber Eats, see what's going on with the schedule, when it's scheduled, your estimated delivery, because you ordered your food for later tonight. You see that they haven't started anything yet because your food doesn't start till 8 p.m. So you can see everything that's going on. And again, it's the stuff we've built in there is revolutionary,
Yeah,
really. And it's
that's really cool.
all with an AI stack on the front end to help value manage our code. And we've got GIS coordination built into it as well for polygonal mapping for territory coverage. And like sales groups sell things differently in different markets and they cost things different in different markets. So that's all structured in. The complexity there's all built in as well. So it's just
Yeah, yeah, very
unreal.
cool. And that's all within the CRM you mentioned, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other tech stack do you have that you can offer the solar industry?
We have a sales proposal, door knocking. It's all built into the system. So it just depends on what you need, depends on what we turn on for you, what features we have. So let's say you're wanted marketing and you need more sales volume. We can actually turn that on for you at the cost for that service. And we're a month to month. So we're a non-annual service company. We're not looking to pigeonhole people and string arm them. We do know that once you get involved with our tech, you're going to love it so much that you're just going to stick with us. And our rates are so low and so competitive against other tech stacks. We get rid of, on average, 5 different tech stacks for the average construction management team. Five
Oh,
of
that's
their
awesome.
tech stack groups on average.
Yeah.
We reduce that cost by 60 to 80% on average for that stack, because our cost per month, 2 grand on the low end, 7 grand on the high end. No seat fees, no other fees. That's for the sales side too. So like if you are fully turnkey and you do sales and you do operations management, you can't beat our software. It's
Yeah. Very
ridiculous.
cool.
And back to the roles and responsibilities. So service level agreements, you're aware SLAs, what those are, KPIs, key production indicators, all the buzzwords that probably those boots on the ground employees don't give a two hoots about too much. Well, our system is integrated where you can actually assign SLAs to any of the project phases at any time and adjust those based on real-time capacity. So the computer, the AI is actually monitoring the way that you've suggested SLAs, and based on turn times that you get on those projects might suggest you either modify or change those SLAs or change your processes to help eke efficiencies on those areas where you might have a pig in the python moment, from project intake, design and engineering, other schedule management things that are tied up or binding up your system that would inhibit your cash flow. Because at the end of the day, what we always need in a business, we need adequate cash flow so that we can pay people on time, pay our bills on time, and hopefully realize revenue within that 1 to 3 year time frame.
Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned AI in your process.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
AI's really kind of come to the forefront in a lot of business leadership's minds, and a lot of them just don't know what to do. They don't know how to utilize it. They know Chat GPT's out there. That's the big
Yeah.
one. But there's so many tools out there. What other tools are you looking at? What other tools do you have that utilize AI? And where would you like to go in the AI space that you're just starting to think about?
So our team, I might have described it just briefly, but our team is using AI in the way that we're doing coding and code development and code review, and it's actually built into the front end of filter, if you want to call it, of our entire stack. So it's helping to realize across the board how we manage our ecosystem. It's put together a knowledge base. A lot of companies have external knowledge bases to their CRM system, which is counterintuitive, right? Like a knowledge base should be a gate control access management software that ties to your LMS functionality within your system to gatekeep specific things that relate towards engaging your software. Maybe not your process, but your software. Like, yeah, you might have to take sexual harassment training, and that's all. You can embed that all into your knowledge base and things of that nature as well. The utility for AI is that it can monitor that and tell you when your knowledge base and your training LMS stuff is out of date compared to your process management, and suggest updates. It ties to some of the ancillary products we associate to our ecosystem. So the experience there, if you're not solar, it might be, I hope I don't lose too many people, but we work with a group that's a third party site survey group. They're called Insight. They're embedded into our ecosystem in two ways. One, globally. So if you buy our software and you want them as a part of the service pack, it's stacked into that system. And then we help you with the relationship and set up all the payment systems for work order management, invoicing, and all that. And it's all done for you. And so we'll build that ecosystem. But our AI overlay also looks at the SLAs you program into your site survey management environment. And if you are out of SLA, it's going to suggest to you that use our third party support group, because they will return that for you with quicker turn times on that experience, because that's where we do our professional. We
Right.
also stack with a design and engineering team called Whistling, and then we've stacked with a procurement and delivery team called Final Mile, and we can embed those into the system to help companies be more efficient without increasing their employee count, their human capital management count, because we're going to help them with a lot more efficiencies through this ecosystem and through those partnerships. So it's a win across the board, legitimately.
So let's look into the future a little bit then. What would you like to add to your offerings?
The future for us right now is really about stabilization, bringing the tech to the market and getting our tech in front of as many people as possible is our primary goal. We still manage solar residential and commercial projects nationwide, and so we're not going to stop doing solar, even in the market space of this chaos with tariffs and trades and the ITCs and 45% domestic content requirements and the changes in the TPO, which is the PPA financing products versus lease products versus cash, and the value benefits that are happening. Like, it's all a little bit chaotic right now for the average user. It's a little bit too much to track. So to kind of wrap up what's going on solar, just so that we can be on the same page with your audiences, solar's not going away. The grid management requirements, we're becoming even more electrified of a society. The requirements aren't going to reduce. The better that you can be individually isolated from demand use issues that could potentially arise. There's plenty of good energy storage systems out there. I happen to like a couple. I happen to like Enphase Technologies, but there's a lot of them out there that you can work with. We work with a different one in our commercial side, but there's a lot of ways for solar to still be completely advantageous for the user, even when ITCs completely go away. And our business is really focused on providing the best value proposition and the best efficiency management so that companies can be cash flow positive, so that they can make sure that they're profitable through the scale back. Over the next 3 years, the ITCs are going to fall all the way off, potentially. There could be another change of the guard, as there always is. There's always changes, so who knows what's going to happen. But our business is focused on not being reliant on suckling from the teat of tax credits as a part of your business model. It's not a healthy thing to continue to focus on. It should be the candle on top of the icing on top of the cake that's a benefit, but not required to eat the cake. And so we are focused on making sure that's the efficiency, that's the area, or efficiency is the area, the CRM is the area. We can get people into our ecosystem and stabilize operations so that sales can funnel the right volume of projects through the ecosystem to maintain health for a business.
Gotcha.
Too much on the end is never good. It's never good to eat too much pizza. Eat a slice of pizza. It's never good to eat too much apples, too much grape, too much anything. So watch the intake so you can manage it healthfully. And that's what we're focused on over the next 3 years with AI overlay, with the CRM technology and other opportunities we're bringing, and then just stabilizing residential and commercial solar is our focus.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
So, yeah, we covered most of the topics I wanted to talk about.
Awesome.
Let's share one more piece of operational wisdom you share in your book.
One more piece of operational wisdom I share in my book. You know, the first thing that comes to mind, and it's one of the stories in there that was shared by one of my mentors and leaders, Cody Oram. He's one of the guys that first originally told me, "Hey, Tripper, go get your contractor's license because you'll be able to print money, basically." And it's worked. It actually has done that for me. So he told me this story, and whether it was from his family actually or he used it as a metaphor, but it was in relation to his wife making a ham. And it's the ham story. And he saw his wife making a ham, and she had been cutting the ends of the ham off. You know, those hams that are wrapped up and you make them for Christmas. And she was cutting the ends off. And he was like, "Honey, why are you cutting the ends off the ham?" And she's like, "Well, that's what you do. You cut the ends off the ham." And he's like, "Well, who told you that?" So why? Asking why, finding out why, right? That's the important kind of message here. Well, my mother did. You know, this is how we do it. And he goes, "Well, did you ever ask her why?" And she goes, "No, that's just how I learned. So I cut the ends off the ham. That's how you make ham." And she goes, "Why don't you call your mom and ask her just to humor me?" So, you know, I loved this engagement because from a human, and I'm a married man, been married for quite a long time, have 2 wonderful children, and I'm going to keep my wife happy for the rest of my life. That's my goal. But back to the story, you know, the whole intent was just to help his wife understand this thing, like the why. So they call her mom, "Hey, Mom, yeah, well, I'm making a ham, and you know, Cody wants me to ask you why we do this." And she goes, "Well, dear, the pan that I had couldn't fit the hams we bought, so I had to cut the ends off to have the ham fit in the pan." And he didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't go off on her or anything, but you're laughing because you can already see the lesson here. And it's that if you don't ask why the process is the way it is and you just accept that it is, you're going to cut the ends off your ham. And what does that do to ham? Do you know what it does to your ham if you cut the ends off?
You reduce serving size. I mean, you don't have as much ham
That's
to eat at
one.
the end. Yeah.
That's one. What else? Like when you're trying to hold you want to hold moisture in a piece of meat. When you cut the ends off, it actually allows moisture to escape. So your ham's going to be more dry than it would if you keep the ends off
Yeah.
and cook
Good
it that
point.
way. I mean, you could do it, please not right now. You could do it with all kinds of different things. Like it doesn't matter, but the principle comes back to her pan was plenty big enough to fit the ham and cook it. And you can cook a ham a million ways, but it ties back to why do you cut the ends off the ham? And so from a leadership perspective, I encourage people for leaders themselves to create an environment where their employees can ask them why things are the way they are. And from a perspective to make improvements or a perspective to allow them to play devil's advocate or whatever it is. But don't just accept your processes the way they are because that's how they've been.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing things the way you've always done it isn't necessarily the best way to do it.
Yeah.
All right. If there are some solar companies that'd like to reach out to you,
Yeah.
how do they get in touch with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. So you can find Tripper Gowan on LinkedIn. You can find me in a few different emails, which they're actually also on LinkedIn. I would just go that route. It's going to be the best way to get to me professionally. I do have a pretty large network on there. As far as outreach, different companies want different things. So I do offer consulting. I do have a couple employees we can have come out and help with solar operations, help with efficiencies, help manage your team, and help you identify the areas where you need the improvement. So I do offer the consulting on that side. On the Solero side, tripper@solero.com. If you have any sales organizations, dealer organizations that are looking for a place where they can land sales, we can help you out with that. If there's any installers out there, again, like you just suggested, that maybe need support, really the CRM is what we're pushing right now. I don't really have other areas that I'm going to be helping solar operations land relationships other than through our technology, which through that technology will open up other avenues. But really, that's my way to help understand what a company needs without me being in every company's office. And we can go and offer them better solutions through understanding the data and analytics that are built through that technology. So reach out to me through tripper@solera.com for anything again on that side, and I can help there. And that would be the best ways to get in touch with me.
Great. And I'll get those links from you. If you want to send those
Yep,
to me, that'd be great. We'll share
will
those
do.
in the description below.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that.
Tripper, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed our time together today. Thanks for your insights and good luck with the book and with your endeavors with your companies.
Thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.